Hello, and welcome back to our journey of personal growth and self-discovery. If you tuned into our last episode about finding purpose and passion, you've already taken a significant step toward living a more fulfilled life. But let's be real, finding your purpose is only the beginning. The path to achieving your goals is often filled with obstacles, big and small, that can make even the most passionate among us feel stuck or overwhelmed. Today, we're diving deep into how to overcome these obstacles and continue moving toward the life you want to create. Now, let's start with a little honesty. No one's journey is without its bumps, right? Think about it. How many times have you set a goal for yourself, felt all pumped up and ready to go, and then, bam, you hit a wall? It could be anything: lack of time, self-doubt, fear of failure, or just the chaos of daily life. Suddenly, that big dream that seemed so clear and attainable starts to feel, well, a bit daunting. And you might start wondering, is this even worth it? Well, let me tell you something, you're not alone. Every single person, from the most successful entrepreneur to the artist creating masterpieces, has faced obstacles that made them question their path. But here's the good news: it's how you tackle these obstacles that makes all the difference. Today, we're going to explore practical strategies to not just face these challenges but to use them as stepping stones toward your goals. Let's take a moment to reflect. Close your eyes, if you can, and think about a goal you're currently striving for. Maybe it's starting your own business, getting in shape, writing that book, or simply creating more balance in your life. Picture it clearly in your mind. Now, think about the obstacles standing in your way. It could be lack of resources, time constraints, fear of the unknown, or even the little voice inside your head that says, "You can't do this." Those obstacles, they're real. They're not just in your head. And yes, they can be tough to navigate. But they're also not the end of the road. What if I told you that these very obstacles could become the fuel that propels you forward? What if every setback, every moment of doubt, was actually an opportunity for growth and learning? In today's episode, we're going to break down this concept. We'll talk about the most common obstacles people face when chasing their dreams and how to reframe them. You'll learn strategies to shift your mindset, develop resilience, and build a toolkit to overcome whatever comes your way. Because let's face it, life isn't about avoiding obstacles, it's about learning to dance with them. We'll also hear some inspiring stories from people who've been where you are, people who faced tremendous challenges yet still found a way to break through. And by the end of this episode, my hope is that you'll feel not just inspired but also equipped with actionable steps to take on whatever stands between you and your goals. So, grab a cup of coffee, get comfortable, and let's dive in. It's time to turn those roadblocks into stepping stones and move one step closer to the life you've been dreaming of. Are you ready? Let's do this. Alright, so now that we've set the stage, let's talk about the obstacles themselves. The truth is, obstacles come in all shapes and sizes. Some are external, like time, money, and unexpected life events. Others are internal, like fear, self-doubt, and procrastination. But no matter what form they take, they all have one thing in common: they can make you feel like you're stuck, like you're not making any progress toward your goals. Let's start by breaking these obstacles down into two main categories: external and internal. We'll explore each one and talk about how to tackle them head-on. These are the things outside of us, things we often feel we have little control over. Maybe you want to start a business, but you don't have the capital. Or you're looking to get in shape, but your job and family responsibilities leave you with no time. These are real, tangible barriers, and they can be incredibly frustrating. But here's a little secret: while you may not always be able to change your circumstances overnight, you can change how you respond to them. It's all about creativity and flexibility. Let's break this down with a quick example. Imagine you're working a full-time job and dreaming of starting a side business. Your obstacle: time. You're exhausted after work, and weekends are packed with family commitments. Here's the shift: instead of thinking, "I just don't have time," try asking yourself, "Where can I find little pockets of time in my day?" Maybe it's 30 minutes during your lunch break, or perhaps it's waking up just 15 minutes earlier each day. The key here is to start small and build momentum. It's not about making huge sacrifices right away. It's about finding those small windows of opportunity and using them consistently. And remember, progress is progress, no matter how slow. Every little step counts. Now, what if your obstacle is financial? You need money to start that business, but you're already stretched thin. Here's where creativity comes into play. Could you start smaller than you originally planned? Could you cut a small, non-essential expense to save up? Or could you take on a side gig that aligns with your goals to generate some initial capital? The point is to shift from a mindset of "I can't" to "How can I?" This simple change in thinking opens up new possibilities and helps you see solutions you might have overlooked. Now, let's shift gears to talk about the internal obstacles, the ones that often feel even tougher to tackle. These are things like fear, self-doubt, and procrastination. We all have that little voice in our heads that whispers, "What if you fail?" or "Who are you to think you can do this?" That voice can be loud, can't it? And when we listen to it, it can paralyze us. But here's the thing: that voice, that fear, it's actually there to protect you. It's trying to keep you safe from failure, from rejection, from pain. But in doing so, it's also keeping you from growth, from success, from living the life you truly want. So how do we deal with it? One powerful strategy is to reframe your fear. Instead of seeing it as a roadblock, see it as a signpost. It's telling you that you're stepping out of your comfort zone, that you're about to do something brave and important. Remember, fear is often a sign that you're on the right track. If you're not feeling at least a little scared, you're probably not pushing yourself enough. Here's an exercise you can try. When you feel that fear creeping in, pause and ask yourself, what's the worst that could happen? Then, follow it up with, and if that happened, what could I do to handle it? You'll often find that the worst-case scenario isn't as bad as your mind makes it out to be, and knowing you have a plan for it can make it seem less intimidating. And what about procrastination? We've all been there, right? You know what you need to do, but suddenly cleaning the entire house or binge-watching a new series seems way more appealing. Procrastination often happens because the task feels overwhelming or because we're afraid of not doing it perfectly. The trick here is to break it down. If the goal feels too big, start with the smallest possible step. Want to write a book? Start by writing just one paragraph. Want to get fit? Start with a 5-minute walk. The action doesn't have to be huge, it just needs to be something. Once you take that first step, no matter how small, you'll find it's often easier to keep going. And if you're waiting for the perfect moment to start, remember this: there is no perfect moment. Conditions will never be flawless, and you will never feel 100% ready. The right time to start is now, imperfections null. Let's take a moment to breathe that in. Overcoming obstacles, whether they're external or internal, is about small, consistent actions and a mindset shift. It's about looking at a barrier and saying, "I see you, and I'm going to find a way around you, over you, or through you." Up next, we're going to dive into some real-life stories of people who faced massive obstacles and found ways to overcome them. These aren't superhero stories. These are everyday people who decided that their dreams were worth the struggle. And hopefully, their experiences will inspire you to look at your own obstacles a little differently. So, stay tuned, and let's keep moving forward together. Now that we've talked about the common obstacles and how to start overcoming them, let's get into some real-life stories. Because, let's face it, sometimes the best way to learn is through the experiences of others. Hearing about someone else's journey can give us that little spark of hope and remind us that, yes, it is possible to overcome whatever stands in our way. Let's start with Sarah. Sarah is a single mom of two who always dreamed of starting her own business. For years, she felt stuck in her 9-to-5 job, juggling work, kids, and the endless list of daily responsibilities. The obstacle? Time. She felt she barely had a moment to breathe, let alone start a business. Sound familiar? But Sarah did something interesting. Instead of trying to carve out large chunks of time, because let's be real, they just didn't exist, she focused on micro-actions. She started dedicating just 15 minutes a day to her business idea. It doesn't sound like much, does it? But here's the magic: those 15 minutes added up. Over weeks and months, she slowly built the foundation of her business. She didn't wait for the perfect time or for her life to slow down. She just started with what she had. Today, Sarah runs a successful online business. Is it a multi-million-dollar empire? No, but it gives her the flexibility to work around her kids' schedules, and it brings her joy and fulfillment. The takeaway here: you don't need hours of free time to pursue your goals. Start small. Even the tiniest steps can lead to big changes. Next up, let's talk about James. James had always been passionate about art, but for years he kept his work hidden. His biggest obstacle? Fear of rejection, fear of failure, fear that he wasn't good enough. He was his own worst critic, constantly comparing himself to others and convincing himself that he'd never make it. Then one day, James decided to take a small, brave step. Instead of aiming for perfection, he challenged himself to share one piece of his art online each week, no matter how he felt about it. The first time he hit that post button, his heart was racing. But guess what? The world didn't end. In fact, people started responding positively. They appreciated his work. And slowly, the fear started to lose its grip on him. Today, James isn't just sharing his art, he's selling it. He's built a community of people who appreciate his unique style. Did he still face criticism along the way? Absolutely. But by taking that first small step and confronting his fear, he found a way to move forward. The lesson here: fear often diminishes when we face it head-on. Taking action, even when you're scared, is what builds confidence over time. Our last story is about Maria, a professional who felt trapped in her career. She had a stable job, good benefits, and by all accounts, she was successful. But deep down, she felt unfulfilled. Her obstacle was self-doubt, the nagging feeling that it was too late to make a change, that she was too deep into her career to pivot. Maria decided to tackle this obstacle by first giving herself permission to explore. She didn't quit her job overnight. Instead, she started dedicating her weekends to discovering what truly excited her. She took workshops, attended networking events, and even started a blog to document her journey. Slowly but surely, she began to see a new path forming. It wasn't a quick process, but eventually, Maria found her calling in a completely different field. Today, she works in a career that aligns with her passions and values. It took time, patience, and a lot of self-reflection, but by allowing herself the freedom to explore without immediate pressure, she found a way to overcome her self-doubt and create a new path for herself. The moral here: it's never too late to pivot. Sometimes, overcoming an obstacle is about giving yourself the space to explore and the grace to grow at your own pace. What do all these stories have in common? They involve regular people, just like you and me, facing obstacles that could have easily stopped them in their tracks. But instead of giving up, they found ways to move forward, one small step at a time. They didn't wait for perfect conditions, and they didn't let fear or doubt dictate their path. Now, let's reflect on your own journey. Think about the obstacles you're facing right now. Is it time, like Sarah? Fear, like James? Or maybe self-doubt, like Maria? Whatever it is, know this: you have the power to overcome it. You don't have to tackle it all at once, and you don't have to have it all figured out. Start small. Start today. Whether it's 15 minutes of focus time, sharing one piece of your work, or dedicating a weekend to explore your passions, those small actions will compound over time. In the next part of this episode, we're going to dive into some specific strategies you can use to tackle your obstacles head-on. We'll go over actionable tips you can apply to your own life starting today. Because it's not just about feeling inspired, it's about taking that inspiration and turning it into action. So, grab a pen and paper if you can, because we're about to get practical. Stay with me, we're in this together. Alright, now that we've been inspired by real-life stories of people who overcame their obstacles, it's time to get practical. Because inspiration is great, but action is what creates change. So, let's dive into some specific strategies you can use to tackle your obstacles head-on, whether they're external, like time and resources, or internal, like fear and self-doubt. 1. Break it down into bite-sized pieces. You've probably heard this advice before, but there's a reason it's so common: it works. When you're facing a big obstacle or a goal that seems overwhelming, break it down into smaller, manageable tasks. Let's say your goal is to write a book. That's a big project, right? It's easy to look at the entire thing and think, how on earth am I going to do this? But what if you broke it down into tiny, bite-sized pieces? Instead of thinking about writing an entire book, start with writing just one paragraph a day. One paragraph. That's doable, right? Here's the magic of this approach: when you focus on small, achievable tasks, you build momentum. And momentum is powerful. It's like pushing a boulder up a hill. It's hard at first, but once it starts rolling, it becomes easier to keep it going. 2. Use the 5-minute rule. This is a fantastic technique, especially if you struggle with procrastination. The idea is simple: if there's something you're dreading or feel overwhelmed by, commit to doing it for just 5 minutes. That's it. Give yourself permission to stop after 5 minutes if you want to. Most of the time, you'll find that getting started is the hardest part. Once you're actually into the task, it becomes much easier to keep going. It's like going for a run. Getting your shoes on and stepping out the door is often the biggest hurdle. But once you're out there, it's not so bad. So, if you're putting off a task, tell yourself, I'm just going to work on this for 5 minutes. You'll be surprised at how often that 5 minutes turns into 15, 30, or even more. 3. Reframe your negative thoughts. We talked earlier about internal obstacles like fear and self-doubt. One effective way to combat these is through reframing. Our minds can be our biggest enemies, but they can also be our greatest allies if we know how to guide them. Let's say you catch yourself thinking, I'm not good enough to do this. Instead of letting that thought spiral, pause and reframe it. Ask yourself, is this thought true? More often than not, it's just fear talking. Replace it with a more empowering thought like, I may not be perfect, but I'm learning and growing with every step I take. Another powerful reframe is to see obstacles as challenges rather than roadblocks. When you view something as a challenge, it becomes an opportunity for growth. It shifts from being something that stops you to something that you can overcome and learn from. It's a subtle change in mindset, but it can make a big difference in how you approach your obstacles. 4. Create a not-to-do list. We're all familiar with to-do lists, but have you ever tried making a not-to-do list? This is a list of habits, distractions, or commitments that you need to avoid to stay focused on your goals. For example, if you find that spending too much time on social media is hindering your progress, put "no social media before 10 a.m. on your not-to-do list. This strategy is about protecting your time and energy. By identifying the things that are holding you back or sucking up your time, you can consciously choose to limit or eliminate them. It's a way to create boundaries that keep you aligned with your goals. 5. Seek support and accountability. Remember, you don't have to do this alone. Sometimes the best way to overcome obstacles is to have someone in your corner. This could be a friend, family member, mentor, or even a community of like-minded people who are on a similar journey. If you're comfortable, share your goals and the obstacles you're facing with someone you trust. Ask them to check in on your progress or offer support when things get tough. Knowing that someone is there to encourage you can make a huge difference. And sometimes, just talking about your struggles out loud can give you a new perspective on how to tackle them. 6. Celebrate small wins. We often focus so much on the end goal that we forget to acknowledge the progress we're making along the way. Celebrating small wins is crucial. It keeps you motivated and reminds you that every step forward, no matter how small, is a victory. So, the next time you overcome even a minor obstacle, take a moment to celebrate. Maybe it's treating yourself to something you enjoy or simply taking a few minutes to acknowledge your progress and give yourself a mental high five. Remember, it's not just about the destination, it's about appreciating the journey and the effort you're putting in every day. Let's do a quick recap. When facing obstacles, break them down into smaller tasks, use the 5-minute rule to get started, and reframe negative thoughts into empowering ones. Create a not to do list to protect your time, seek support from those around you, and don't forget to celebrate the small wins along the way. Remember, overcoming obstacles is not about eliminating every challenge in your path, it's about learning to navigate around them, through them, or even using them to your advantage. It's about building resilience, staying flexible, and continually moving forward, one small step at a time. So, as we wrap up this part, think about the obstacle you're currently facing. Which of these strategies could you apply right now? Is there a small step you can take today to move just a little bit closer to your goal? Take a moment to decide on one action you can commit to. It doesn't have to be big. Remember, the journey to overcoming obstacles and achieving your goals is made up of countless small actions. And each one of those actions is a win. In our final segment, we're going to talk about how to maintain this momentum over the long term. Because as you know, the path to achieving your goals isn't a sprint, it's a marathon. So, stay with me, and let's keep building this journey together. So, you've got your strategies, you've taken those first steps, and you're feeling that spark of momentum. That's fantastic. But let's be real, staying on track isn't always easy. Life has this funny way of throwing curveballs at us, and sometimes, that initial motivation starts to fade. This is where the real work begins, maintaining that momentum over the long haul. 1. Build consistent habits. One of the best ways to sustain momentum is by turning your actions into habits. Habits are like the autopilot mode for your brain. Once you've formed a habit, it requires less conscious effort to keep going. So, how do you do this? Start by anchoring your new actions to existing habits. For example, if your goal is to read more, tie that action to something you already do daily. Let's say you have a morning coffee routine. Add just 5 minutes of reading right after you pour that cup of coffee. This is known as habit stacking, and it's a powerful way to build new behaviors into your daily routine. Consistency is key here. It's better to do a small action regularly than a large action sporadically. If you're trying to write a book, writing a paragraph every day is more effective than writing 10 pages once a month. Why? Because consistency builds habits, and habits build momentum. 2. Set milestones and track progress. Big goals can feel overwhelming, which is why setting milestones is so important. Break your larger goal into smaller, more manageable chunks. Then, celebrate when you reach each milestone. These celebrations don't have to be grand, they just need to acknowledge your progress and keep you motivated. Let's say your goal is to run a marathon. That's a huge undertaking. Instead of focusing solely on the marathon, set milestones like running your first 5K, then a 10K, and so on. Each milestone reached is a reminder that you're making progress and that you're getting closer to your ultimate goal. Tracking your progress also plays a big role here. Keep a journal or use an app to log your daily efforts. Seeing your progress laid out in front of you can be incredibly motivating. It shows you how far you've come, even on days when it feels like you're not making much headway. It's those small, consistent efforts that add up over time. 3. Embrace setbacks as part of the journey. Here's the truth, setbacks are inevitable. No matter how prepared or motivated you are, there will be days when things don't go as planned. You'll miss a workout, procrastinate on a project, or fall back into old habits. And you know what? That's perfectly okay. The key is how you respond to those setbacks. Instead of seeing them as failures, view them as part of the process. Every setback is an opportunity to learn and grow. Ask yourself, what can I learn from this experience, and how can I adjust my approach moving forward? Think of setbacks as a natural part of any journey. Just like a road trip, sometimes you'll take a wrong turn or hit a detour. But those detours don't stop you from reaching your destination. They just change the route a little bit. So, be kind to yourself when things don't go perfectly. Remember, progress isn't about perfection, it's about persistence. 4. Revisit and adjust your goals. Your goals aren't set in stone. They can evolve as you grow and learn more about yourself. Periodically take time to revisit your goals and assess your progress. Ask yourself, is this goal still meaningful to me, and do I need to adjust my approach? Maybe you set a goal to climb the corporate ladder, but along the way, you realize that what you truly want is to start your own business. That's not failure, that's growth. It's okay to pivot. The most important thing is that your goals continue to align with your values and passions. 5. Find your why and keep it front and center. When the going gets tough, reconnect with your why. Why did you set this goal in the first place? What's the deeper reason behind it? Maybe you want to write a book to share your story and inspire others, or perhaps you want to get fit to have more energy for your family. Your why is the fuel that will keep you going when motivation wanes. One way to keep your why front and center is to create a visual reminder. It could be a vision board, a quote on your mirror, or even a simple note on your phone. When you're feeling discouraged or tempted to give up, revisit this reminder to reignite your passion and commitment. 6. Surround yourself with positivity. The people you surround yourself with can have a huge impact on your journey. Seek out a support system that encourages and uplifts you. Whether it's friends, family, a mentor, or an online community, having people who believe in you can make all the difference. Avoid naysayers or those who drain your energy. This doesn't mean you need to cut people out of your life, but be mindful of who you're allowing to influence your mindset and energy. If you're surrounded by positivity and support, you'll be more resilient in the face of obstacles. Maintaining momentum is about building habits, celebrating progress, embracing setbacks, and staying connected to your why. It's about being patient with yourself and recognizing that every small step forward is a victory. There will be days when you feel like you're not moving fast enough, and that's okay. Progress isn't always linear. It's more like a winding path with ups, downs, and everything in between. As we wrap up this episode, I want to remind you that you are capable of achieving your goals, no matter how big or small they may seem. You have the power to overcome obstacles, not by leaping over them in a single bound, but by taking one steady step at a time. So, as you move forward from today, take a moment to acknowledge your journey. Celebrate the progress you've made, no matter where you are on your path. And remember, it's not about being perfect. It's about showing up, again and again, with the courage to pursue what matters most to you. Thank you for joining me on this journey to overcome obstacles and achieve your goals. I hope you found some inspiration and practical tools to help you along the way. And remember, you've got this. Keep moving forward, one step at a time. Until next time, stay focused, stay motivated, and keep chasing those dreams.